Today's guest is a fun one. A lot of you may know him as Extra Spicy Mayo on Instagram, but today's guest is Jason Mayo. He is a high school teacher. He's the food ambassador for Norfolk County and two-time guest on MasterChef Canada. We had some interesting chats just about life, teaching the next generation, what it was like to be on MasterChef Canada, and all the drama involved in that. There's some good stuff in there. This one's a good one. Jason's a good friend of mine, and today's cocktail is a Jason Sunset Sip. This one is 1 ounce bourbon whiskey, which you want to muddle into some mint in a nice fancy glass. You're going to add 1 ounce simple syrup, some ice, and then you're going to top this with some club soda. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey you, you're listening to Just Drew.
All right, we're going to try something new. I put I had an intro song written by a friend, and we put it onto the onto the pad. And everybody's asking because the podcast isn't out yet. They're like, what's the theme song? So we'll play it for you.
Okay.
All right, hit it, Drew. Top left.
Hey you, you're listening to Just Drew.
That's it.
That's
like the one.
It has like a Beatles vibe to it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
That was my friend David Stubbs. Our dads grew up together their whole lives, and then we grew up together, and then he's out in BC now, but he has a band, and he was touring here, and we did a little photo shoot, and that was the favor I called in. I was like, hey, buddy, I need a theme song for my podcast. So,
do you not find it crazy, like, the variety of friends you amass, like, over the years? You're like, oh, I have a friend who can do this?
Yeah, just move it closer. The whole thing will bang closer.
It should.
Yeah, just push it towards him. There you go.
Oh, calm down, slow
Yeah.
down. Jeez, Tiger.
Yeah, the amount of friends you amass over your life.
But it's like, it's not even the amount. It's just the crazy shit they can do. So, like, it's the variety of things. So, like, oh, I was at the theater, and they're like, hey, we need a photographer. I was like, well, I got, like, 4 people I can message. You know? Like, it's weird. Oh, someone needs flowers for their wedding. Oh, well, I work with this person. She does that on the side. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy when you're like, oh, something's wrong with my house. Oh, wait, so-and-so's husband's an electrician. Boom. And it's like, it's done. And I don't know if that's the same way in the city. I don't know if that's a country thing. But, like, that astounds me sometimes.
Yeah, the shift moving from Hamilton to Norfolk County, I noticed it almost immediately. There is some of that if you're outgoing, but I feel like even if you're not outgoing here, you can't avoid it. It's a smaller community, and people just know each other.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
It's nice though, because like we've never really worked together, but we just know each other because we both live here and love it, and we just keep running into each other.
Yeah, I know you through. Would it be through Ashley? Or would it be through Eric?
I don't know. Do you remember like our meet cute? I don't remember meeting you.
I want to hear the meet cute if there's
I can't think of it.
I feel like
I've known you for a long time though.
it had to have been at some event.
Yeah.
It was probably like at no, it couldn't have been the fair. I had to have met you before then.
I must have been photographing somewhere.
Yeah, I think you were. Now it's funny because when we're at events, I photograph you photographing people because I think it's hilarious. Right? And it's just like, behind the scenes. But it had to have been it was not something like small and intimate. It definitely was something larger. It might have been Eat Drink.
Could have been. Were you at like the Terroir event at Burning? So it might have been that.
I'm sorry. Whoa.
I can't. That's a long time
Norfolk's
ago.
Food and Drink Ambassador, and you didn't think I was at Terroir?
I don't know what terroir is.
Well,
I don't understand even what the word.
Well, we can dive into that.
Terroir.
Terroir, yeah.
It means earth.
When you boil it down,
But like from the earth, like outside.
Terroir is a term they use in cuisine and winemaking, but it's why grapes will taste the same. Grape will taste different here than it does in Niagara.
I was going with the French word.
Terroir, yeah.
So that was, they do it. It's a
It's also
countrywide.
It's an event as well.
Yeah.
They call it terroir.
And so it's hosted every year, and they pick a location to host it at. And we were chosen, which was great because I got to take the day off and have a community day. So I got paid, so that was great.
Is it an international thing? Or just
They had international chefs there,
okay?
but I don't think it's international. I think it's just Canadian, but I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
And all the cooking has to be done outside. So they did it at Burning Kiln, and they had all these chefs, local chefs paired with high-end chefs from around the province and the country. And they made all of these cool things. And we ate outside, and there were all of these people from Toronto and like everywhere. And I remember I don't know. I love Norfolk County. Like a lot. I have
me too.
I have dogwood flowers tattooed on my arm. Like I love Norfolk County, and it was funny to hear all these people. I was walking around with Rob, who used to work at Villanova Winery. I
vaguely know of him. I think I've met him a few times.
Yeah, I would have called him Hot Rob, but never to you. It was Hot Rob. Deep voice, beautiful man. Anyways, and there was this lady talking to him, and she's like, "Oh, I just would have never thought all of this stuff existed in Norfolk, and how does no one know about this?" And I said, "That's how we want it." And she turned, she looked at me, she's like, "Pardon?" And I said, "We want you to come down here and experience what we have, but like, don't muddy it up.
Don't change it.
Do you know what I mean?
Leave right after.
Yeah, we don't know, but you can stay for a weekend. I don't care, or even move down here. That's fine. But like, we don't want to build like some commercialized chain hotel and like destroy a field so that you can have somewhere to stay.
Yeah.
So that you can snatch up all of the stuff here and then run away. You know, like I think that actually happened during COVID. There were so many people who weren't supposed to be leaving their areas, and they all came down here, right? And that's why Turkey Point beaches are crazy now. Like Long Point beaches are crazy.
I think, well, that's why I had a major issue finding a house here.
Yep.
9 times out of 10, I was beat out, and most often it was people from Toronto who just had more money than I did.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they're either just looking to stay here during COVID or buy and rent it out. And people who actually live and work here can't buy the houses because they're all buying it to rent it. It's terrible.
Well, it does create that kind of conundrum, right? Where, and Amy's been fighting for a long time to get more affordable housing and all these things. And there is no easy solution, but it's like to live down here, and you know this now, is an incredible thing. Like we have all of the things, you know, like you're going for polar dips, and like I'm cooking all the things and drinking all the beer wherever, because we have all of the things, you know, and that is astounding. And I don't think people understand that. And I think people around here become like desensitized to the whole thing. And so whenever I teach, the kids are always like, "Oh, I can't wait to leave here. Oh, I can't wait. Like I'm gonna move as far away as possible." And I always look at them like, "Okay, see you in 5 years."
Yeah.
I was talking about that with Drew and Eric because they grew up here.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, like, why are you still here? Because a lot of people I run into just want to leave. And same for Hamilton. It was the same thing. I never wanted to leave Hamilton. It just was like a beautiful accident that I ended up here. Yeah.
No, I think that's the idea that the grass is greener somewhere else. But like you come to realize all of these things that you've grown up with, the access to like all of these crazy things that we have so easily like in front of us, you don't have that in a lot of other places, nor do you have that kind of like sense of community built. Because I would say like that is the one thing that sets us up like really far apart from like Niagara on the Lake or something, is that it's less about the commercialized aspect of it, and it's more about like we know each other. Like, do you know what I mean? Like we know each other. Like I was your biggest fan.
Were you?
For like ever. Yeah, because your videos make me laugh so hard. Like I think you're like the funniest person ever.
That means a lot.
And Fru's nudes.
But like but we never please. We never met.
No.
And then like we only ever met in small like increments. Like
Passing by.
But it was always like the nicest thing. Like,
yeah, it's like, oh, finally.
Yeah. And it's that idea of we can have that and still like be friends and that whole thing because we're so tight knit, you know?
I think I see where you're coming.
Yeah. I think sometimes too that's also problematic though, because then everyone knows everyone's business.
A little bit.
A little bit. I feel like I haven't had much like local drama and stuff.
Keeps people in check, though. I feel like you can't be as much of an asshole here because in the city,
True.
you can just, bump into somebody, say, go fuck yourself, and maybe never run into them again
Yeah.
or even remember them. Here, you can't do that here.
Here, you're going to see their grandma next week at the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah.
And she's going to be like, what'd you say to my grandson?
Yeah.
And you're like, shit, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Irene."
you're caught.
It humbles you a
overseas.
bit.
You're like, oh, shit, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think but that is nice sometimes too, because it does make you more accountable. You know?
Yeah, when it's kind of like that social media. We were talking about social media earlier. It's like a lot of the things people say online they'd never say it to you in person. Most people. Some people would.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's nice here because the community's it's different than other places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so terroir was the coolest thing ever. And that is probably where we met.
Probably. That's also
You were probably like running around doing all the things. And I was
Yeah.
just wearing my big plaid like flannel jacket that we got for being there.
yeah.
Like, were you chefing there or
No.
judging?
I was not doing. I was just walking around,
Just a guest.
being
The guest of honor.
being me. You know?
Nice.
And were you the food ambassador then?
Yes.
So when did you become food ambassador of Norfolk? And how did that even come about?
And
was
what
it
does that
was it a
mean?
thing before you too?
No.
Okay.
I was the first and the last.
First and last, we can go with that.
Because the ambassador program. Well, listen, when Tracy and Clark were doing tourism, they came up with this idea of this ambassador program, and it did actually become an award-winning idea. They won like an award at some tourism conference thing, and I don't know what the actual name is called. Sorry, look it up. But it was myself. I was food and drink, and Amelie Chandra was
Oh,
like activity.
this is coming back to me now because
Yeah.
you guys would do symposium things together.
Yes. So we would co-host things, but there were others. Like there were many others. So like Amy Martin was one of them. She was the wedding it was her and some other lady were the wedding ambassadors.
Yeah.
And then Jason, Amanda Junie's brother. I don't know how to say his last name, like Bar Cruz or something like that.
I don't know if I know her brother.
Yeah, so he's a fisherman, and he
Okay.
was the fishing ambassador. There were all these ambassadors, so many, right? Nikki Scram from, I think it might just be Campbell now, from Art with Heart. She was the arts ambassador.
Drew, we're gonna have to be the podcast involved.
No, you
Oh.
could be. Listen. So they said, you're the ambassador until you don't want to be the ambassador anymore. Well, I will keep it forever, because let me tell you, I think it is accurate.
All right, yeah, it fits.
I still do all the food and drink stuff for the county, and like now I'm not getting paid for it by the county, but like it was a pretty cool gig, and it came to be because of my time on MasterChef. So it was weird because everyone in the county knew me through that more so than anything else, and now I would say I do like far less food stuff. I still promote like all the food and eat, and I feel like there is actually an obligation. Anytime I go out, I have to take a picture and like post and tag and whatever, right? Because if you don't, people are like, oh, why didn't you post?
Yeah.
You know? They're like, It's like when you hang out with a friend and you don't post a picture of the hangout. They're like,
Why not?
why didn't you? And you're like, oh, it's just a really bad picture of you, and I didn't want to insult you. And they're like, send it to me. You're like, I already deleted
Social
it.
media.
I already
service.
deleted it.
That's a smooth one. I'm gonna keep that in my pocket.
You're welcome. But it was interesting now because even when we were Ashley invited me to that White Smoke
Yeah.
wine release, and Chris from tourism says, "Are you still the food and drink ambassador?" And I said, "Sir, you're the one that runs tourism. Like, shouldn't you know?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm keeping it forever. You can't get rid of me.
Yeah,
Like, that's
So you're like the queen, a lifelong commitment.
Listen, you can call me the queen if you want. But the queen of food and drink in Norfolk, sure. But it is an interesting thing because it's like, it goes down to that too. And this, I would say, we have talked about before. Sometimes, especially if you are a local person who promotes a lot of local stuff, you have to be careful. Like, you can't be too honest sometimes, because like sometimes things aren't as good as they could be and things could improve. But like you still want to post and like promote the business, but sometimes the quality's not where it should be or where it has been. So then you feel a little dubious about it. You're like, oof, I don't necessarily want to be like, hey.
Just put him down. Watch the.
He's going to get tangled in that wire. Because you don't want to insult people, but like you also don't want to
lie.
Well, there's that.
It's your own brand, especially when you're doing stuff like that.
Yes. So it's like, it's hard. I'll tell you. No, I shouldn't tell the secret. I'll tell the secret. If you ever see me do a video of like a food place and I ever say the words, oh, you know, like it's cool. It just needs more salt. It means it was terrible.
There's code words.
Terrible.
There's
code
code words
terrible.
in your reviews.
Needs more salt means it was terrible. Like avoid it. Don't do it. Wait a month. Wait until they fix it.
Nice.
But like
I call it's like that Jimmy Fallon effect. He just laughs at anything, even though it's not funny.
Yeah.
So it kind of takes away from everything.
Well, you don't want to. I don't know. I think that was something that started when I started Food Ambassador stuff. Was all these businesses would be like, well, why aren't you coming to my business? And I'd be like, well, I'm only one person, first off. And they were only getting me to do so many videos a month. I still have an actual job. Sometimes I think people forget about that. Like, this has happened before. Today I can do a podcast at 2:00 because I'm on March break. But there are people.
Heck yeah, congrats.
But thanks. But there are people who are like, hey, so can you like shoot this video at 12? And I'm like, no, I have a job. And I can't just be like, hey, not coming in today because I got to make money on something else. You know what I mean?
Oh, I think me and Drew know a lot about how undervalued or underappreciated content and the effort that goes into it.
And it's just crazy that there is this like assumption that you can just drop everything and that you don't have a life or other commitments. And that I find to be astounding too. So, and you don't want to insult a business. You don't want to be like, hey, I probably won't get out there for like a month. You're like, well, I really want. And it's like, okay, I get what you want, but then you might have to find somebody else, you know? And when that whole thing started too, we were only able to film videos for people who were paying into like a tourism membership. So like there were businesses I couldn't go to, you know? And I don't love the sales aspect of that because I got out of, like I was in corporate sales before I was a teacher and I got out of sales like long ago. I don't love sales. Like I can talk to people and that's not a problem, but I just find sometimes it's too skeezy, you know? And like I just want to have a conversation and be like, hey, you make great things. Here's this great thing. I don't need to be paid for that, you know?
Sure.
Like not everything needs to have dollar values attached to it.
Yeah. Or an agenda for that matter. I mean,
yeah.
That's why you asked the reason for the podcast. There's no really agenda. I like people.
Yeah.
I just thought it'd be fun.
I just asked him like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. And, you know, it just works with the name that I have chosen. So,
yeah. And he was like, we have the same name.
Yeah.
we've been working a lot together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's been fun.
Yeah. Drew assisted directed a bunch of spec projects with me. Some pretty big projects. I think he knocked it out of the park.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
They're a lot of fun.
Chaotic days.
Very chaotic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people don't get that too. Is like production days are long days.
Long.
Hurry up and wait days.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pre-production and post-production and coordination and shit that goes wrong. A lot of shit that goes wrong.
Well, that was like every time on MasterChef, it was so crazy the amount of like waiting that you would do for the smallest amount of setup, right? Like everything would take so much time, and you were just chilling. It was, and you weren't allowed to have a phone. So like,
really?
No phone.
I guess because you couldn't take pictures of any behind the scenes stuff.
They didn't want you to be able to like spoil anything. So you would just kind of sit there.
So along with that, would you have to sign like an NDA? Okay, because there's some reality TV shows I've been watching that I'm like, how does this go on this long without people finding out?
18 months. After the last day of filming, and actually after the last episode airs, you're still on an NDA for 18. Well, MasterChef was.
Whoa.
It was 18 months after, so you couldn't talk about process. You couldn't talk about anything.
How hard was that?
I don't know. I didn't win, so it wasn't that hard. But it was, I guess, a little bit hard in the fact that you couldn't spill the tea that you wanted to spill. Like, you had to wait. And then especially worse for me because I was on the last episode aired 18 months later. I was getting ready to be on again. So it was like crazy. I had a very small window of freedom, you know? And then the NDA actually changed between first season and fourth season. Like, it was far more hardcore because I think they realized it was a little too loosey-goosey at first. And people get smarter as social media and like as the internet evolves, and you learn loopholes. So even for me, one of the things was all your recipes, that anything that you had posted or posted on social media before or during the time of the show was theirs, property of them. Yes, even stuff from before. So like they could take your recipes, post it for themselves, attach your name to it, but you never got anything for it. They can, and if you ever see those, you see them a lot in winners, like the MasterChef cookbooks. People aren't getting, like MasterChef's getting paid for those, but the recipes come from things that they've taken. I like that you were about to say that.
I didn't.
I don't want them coming for me. So I learned my way around it was, and this was, you may remember, Let's Make a Sandwich. So Let's Make a Sandwich, I would do all these videos and I'd do all these things, and I would never actually post a recipe. It was all video. So like, here, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Because no one was going to sit down and transcribe that. I was like, they're not going to do that for a recipe. They won't waste their time. So it was my way of being like, no, I'm still going to have this. Like, you can't take that from me. And that was, and people will ask me all the time, like, I'll post food, and you may notice I hardly ever post recipes. And people will be like, oh, can I get the recipe? And the answer is usually no. Because I don't cook with a recipe. Like, I just cook.
You just do it.
Like, I don't know. I'm like, oh yeah, this. You can ask me when I'm making the food for you, but like, I don't have measurements.
Yeah.
I was like, it was a sprinkle of this and a dash of this and like extra dashes.
I think it's fine. As long as you're not baking, it should work.
No, I can do it with baking too.
Yeah, just kind of eyeball it.
I thought baking was more of a science.
It is.
It is, but I feel like if you have experience, you kind of know how much to put.
It's like you come to understand, and we talked about this on the show. You could tell the people who could bake and who couldn't. The bakers were very like meticulous, and like they had baked a lot. So they were very much like, I know how much a cup of flour weighs in my hand. Oh. So it's like, well, you know these things because it's consistent, right? Like my mom could, and I learned how to bake from my mom because she was baking like every day. There was always pie in our house. This is why I have diabetes. But please, that's what my dad said to her too. But he was not wrong. And like there was always pie and there was always cookies and all these things. And this is why I bring pie today. But it was one of those moments where like I would watch her bake and she could just whip up. She'd do like large batches of stuff. So like a 16 batch of pie crust. And she'd just be throwing things in the thing and mixing it all up and then rolling it out and balling it out and putting it in milk bags because you never threw the milk bags out. And then they would go in the freezer. And it was crazy. So when I went to MasterChef, it was funny. Like I gravitated more towards the people who could bake, because you're right, they are a little more technical and like a little more precise, which means they're less like crazy and running around like there's a fire happening and like you know. And so that was cool. And just being able to bake was astounding to some of them. You know, like we did this test kitchen day where it was like, okay, pick things from the fridge. You have an hour, make something. And like I saw everyone running to the fridge and I started laughing and I was just like getting the food processor ready, opening up the bag of flour. And like someone looked at me and they're like, are you baking? And I started laughing. I just started making pie crust and then like not measuring anything, just like getting it done. And they were just like looking at me like I was a witch. Right. And it was crazy because I'm baking this thing and it was beautiful. And they were all just like astounded. And there are those moments, like I love moments like that where you're just like, yep, I did that. Thanks.
Yeah.
What can you do?
All your life experiences have come to a moment
Right.
in time where
Well, and that was crazy too, because my parents weren't alive when I was on the show. So like my mom could never see me do that.
use
know?
what she taught you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like crazy. So sometimes I think like she was probably there,
Oh, yeah.
and probably yelling at me like, that's not enough salt. And it was just like, like, because she would. She'd be like, you need to go home and cut the grass. And I'd be like, oh, leave me alone. But yeah, it was really interesting. Like, because I wonder how she would have reacted. She obviously would have been mad because she would have thought I should have won. But like, like I think she would have been super proud because that's where it did all come from. Like it all came from her, Like
When were you on the show?
the first year it came out, MasterChef Canada's premiered in 2013. That's when season 1 was. And then I was again in 2017 when season 4 came around. It no longer exists, I think. There hasn't been a season in years, so we think it's pretty much probably done. So there were 7 seasons total, and I'm the only person to ever be on 2 regular seasons. There was never anyone else.
Never any comebacks.
How did that come about? Are you allowed to share a little bit of the drama? Because I know this story a little bit,
And I want to hear the story
but I
a little
just,
bit.
if you don't want to
No,
touch
it's
on
fine.
it.
I can say it.
Okay.
I feel like I feel like the proper television people are not going to listen to this podcast. But if they do, like, congratulations.
Yeah.
Hi, proper television.
They might one day. Who knows?
I'm not on an NDA anymore, so I'm going to say what I want.
Yeah. I'll tag them.
But yeah, so I had reality television. If you ever get a chance, don't. But it is addicting. So basically, you get in, and it's weird because so many people apply that you feel like you're chosen. Like you're chosen. Like I am special, right? And you see it because it's all hyped up. You see the auditions. Whenever you see that on television or you're streaming it, there are like thousands of people lined up. That's not an exaggeration. There were thousands of people. It was lined around Toronto city blocks. Like it was crazy. And to go and see all these people, and both times I was VIP, so they had looked at my application and flagged me as VIP, so I got to be in one of the earlier rooms. And then like those are essentially, if you look at production, those are the people that they consider first. They've pre-screened, there's something about them. They have a feeling that whoever they're picking is from this room. It is very rare that they will just have a walk-up person make it in, right? Because they're already casting, and you know how this is. It'd be like making a movie or doing all these things. You already have a cast in mind when you start, And it's very rare that you get surprised or someone says no, right? And that did happen. We had someone say no on our first season, like just before. So actually one of my good friends that I met on that season, she got the call 24 hours before we started filming. The rest of us had like a month. She had like 24 hours. And they were like, yo, can you come? So like she technically wasn't supposed to make it. Someone bailed and then she made it, right? Which was crazy. And then like dropped her whole life to come there from Newfoundland. And then like was on a plane back home 3 days later. You know what I mean? So like there is like highs and lows, like a ton of highs and lows. So you go and you're told like you're the greatest, you're the top 50 in all of Canada.
Yeah.
Over thousands of people. So you're like, oh, I am incredible. You're like, it's me. It's true. And you meet all these people. And I would say the problem with this is if you are observant and if you are intelligent, you start to see behind the curtain. And you're like, oh, okay. Like they introduced us on the first day to the producer of Story. And I was like, did they just say Story? I said, why is there a story? I thought this was real. I thought this is reality, right? But they have to like keep you interested. The viewers want to see something. The viewers want to see drama. The viewers want to see relationships. They want to see all these things. So it was fine. Went to the first one. made it to top 36, I think, which was, I thought I was going to go all the way. I was pretty confident. My food was great. Everyone there thought I was going to do it. So when I came out and I didn't have an apron, they were all like pulling up my cardigan to see where it was hidden, and it wasn't. And I flipped shit and called producers like a bunch of liars, and they cleared the set and whisked me away.
Oh, you did this while it was rolling?
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice. Good for you.
Well, I'm pleased. I think if you know me, you know, like I'm pretty like honest with what I say. Like I'm pretty blunt. So like it did not sit well with me when someone's like, what we didn't know at first was that the judges had earphones in their ears. So like they were being told kind of what to say and when to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Like when a person stops mid-sentence and you're like looking at them and then they continue because they're being fed the next line.
They're listening.
Yeah.
You're like, did you just glitch? Like, did you have a stroke? Like, do we need to do this again? And it was crazy how like and this was the thing too, like one judge, oh, your food is delicious, perfect, just a little spicy. And then down the line, the next judge is like, it's bland. You're like, something can't be too spicy and bland.
Yeah.
There's like, that's not possible. Our taste buds can't, like, unless your mouth is dead, like, that's not a thing. So there was this kind of moment of like, why are you lying? Like,
yeah,
can I just have my, like, if you didn't want me to be there, then you shouldn't have brought me here in the first place. Like, don't set up that kind of failure. So that's, I think, what made it crazier for the return. Because like leaving the first time, I had like crazy PTSD. I went home. I didn't cook for a month. I was like, I felt, oh yeah. Like I felt, my roommates knew. I was like, I was not cooking. I would not go into the kitchen. I felt this like this sense of like extreme failure, you know? Because you are literally risen up to be like the greatest. And then it's like, whoosh, you're nothing, you know? And it was crazy. And then like, I knew better than that. Like I knew I could still cook and that wasn't a problem. But you want to prove them differently. So I kept going back. So I went back for season 2, made it all the way through the audition process, didn't get on. Went back for season 3, made it through all the audition process, didn't get on. But told them when they called me to tell me that I didn't get on. Because they actually don't call you, they email you, so they called me. So I was like, okay, I feel like we have a good relationship. You're calling me. Like, we must be okay. And I said to them, I said, okay, I just want you to know, though, like, this is my last time. I'm not going to apply again. I feel like this relationship is over and I'm in a good place and I don't need you anymore. I was like,
you broke up with them.
Like, I broke up. I was like, it is you. It's not me. I'm great. Like, we're good. See you on the flip side. So season 4 came, like the audition process came up. I didn't apply, and the auditions closed. Like the applications closed, and like days later, I got a DM in my Twitter mailbox, and it was like one of the producers was like, "Can we have a conversation?" And I was like, "Oh God," I'm like, "What is this?" And so then like 20 minutes talking on the phone in a Tim Hortons parking lot, and I'm like, "Oh God." She's like, I can't tell you anything more, that we just want your application. And I said, it's already closed. I didn't apply. Well, I'm going to send it to you. I want you to fill one out, and we want you to apply. And I was like, but I didn't apply. I said, I told you I was done. No, I think it's really important that you apply.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God. So in my head, I'm like, I'm a fucking win.
Yeah.
Oh shit. I was like, they ready for a thick gay boy to win.
Yeah.
I said, here we go. This is 2017. Who'd have thought we were so ahead of schedule here?
And you already know they've maybe pre-written this because
yeah. And I was like, ooh, this is gonna be good.
If they want you that bad.
Yeah, I was like,
there's
this
a
is gonna be
reason.
good. I said, this is gonna be great. So I go, and oh God, one of my friends, like, she was in front of me in line at the auditions. And she says, still to this day, she's like, you walked in, she said, I looked at you and was like, who is this bitch? And I had an air to me. She said, you look like you knew everybody and you didn't give any fucks about any of them. She said, you were like,
already won.
I'm here.
In your head.
Correct. Because I was like, I'm a winner. What does it matter? Like, let's go. I could have brought you dog food on a plate. Here we go. Like, let's make it happen. So I did like a bougie dish. It was like a deconstructed Sunday dinner with like Yorkshire chips and like smoked roast beef and like a root beer. It was crazy.
Oh, that sounds great.
It was very good. But it was nuts. And afterwards, I said, because I saw this girl and I was like, ooh, I had been kind of snotty. And I was like, that's not really like who I am. So like, you know.
You were pumped up.
Yeah, I was like, I had enough gas in my tank. I was like, let's go. And we were in the first room and they had judged our food and whatever. And we were waiting for the callback. And I walked over to her and I said, hey, I'm really sorry. And she's like, it's okay. And I was like, no. I said, I was kind of a bitch and I didn't really need to be a bitch. And she was like, no, it's fine. She's like, everyone knows you. And I said, yeah, I've done this a lot. And she laughed. And I said, I just want you to know you're going to make it. And she looked at me and she's like, what? And I said, you're going to make it. Trust me. I said, it's you and it's him. And I pointed back to someone else, like 3 rows behind us. I said, and maybe that one. And she's like, how do you know that? I was like, trust me. I was like, I know. I was like, I'll see you there. And so then we didn't see each other for like a month and a half, right? And I was like pumped. I knew the call was coming. It came in. Hey, Jason, you're on the season. I said, oh, of course. You know, I said, hey, like, can I drive myself? Blah, blah, blah. So like, I can still have some freedom, you know, like go around, whatever. Like, because you have to stay in a hotel and all these things. So I was like, and it's close. So I was like, if I just drive myself, then I can just move around whenever I need to go get groceries, like whatever, go out for dinner. I don't have to always stay at the hotel. They're like, yeah, sure. And I was like, ooh, I should have read that as a sign early on. Like, yeah, get your car here because you going. And but I was like, that probably wasn't the sign, but it was crazy. I show up early the first day and I'm pumped because I was like, this is great. I've picked like the best outfits. I've got 16 outfits for all these different episodes. I'm like, I am hyper packed. It was beautiful. I'm like having a coffee. I'd quit smoking like a year and a half before. So I was like in a Zen mode. And this girl arrives and it was this Asian girl, Alice is her name. And she was wearing a beret. And I was like, ooh, she gonna be fun. And after her shows up my friend Alicia, who I was the bitch to, and she gets out of her vehicle and she stares at me. And I said, hey, girl, how you doing? And she's like, how did you know? And I said, look behind you. And pulling up behind her and getting out of the car was the dude that I pointed to and said, he'll also be on. And she's like, what are you? And I was like, but I'd been told, like I wasn't supposed to tell them that I'd been on another season. So I was supposed to pretend that this was my first time, but it was difficult because people like the legal team sits down to go over our legal rights with us. And the one lady's like, hey, she's like, I haven't seen you in years. She's like, how you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm good. But maybe you're confusing me with someone else.
Yeah.
I was like, Megan, stop talking, you know, like, and I knew her name and like we were friends on Facebook and it's crazy. And then I was treated like royalty and it was beautiful. And then I was kicked off first episode. So I was like,
second time back.
And I knew there's a moment on the episode where you can see my face where it's like, oh, we're going to reveal something. And if there's food under your cloche, then you still have a second chance. I had a look on my face and I show this video to my students all the time. And I'm like, there was a look. I said, you recognize that look? And they say, yes, it's your look of disappointment. And I'm like, yes.
They know the look.
I'm like, oh yeah, because it's like this weird smirk, like, okay, sure. And then it was probably the most explosive exit interview they'd ever had. I told them they probably weren't going to want to film the first few minutes while I looked at the producer in the room and accused her of being an abusive relationship person because basically they convinced me to come back after I told them I didn't want to. And they conned me into it and then like just ripped my heart out. And so like we were both crying. She was bawling. And I said, like, you were my friend. I was like, I wish you happy birthday. Like, I know your life. And I'm like, this is sad that you would do this to me. She felt terrible. And it was weird because I don't know if this ever happened again. But 2 days later, I drove home and I laughed. And I was like, you got me. You know, it takes a lot to surprise me and to pull one over on me, but you got me. So like, kudos to you, right? And the main producer, the big producer, called me like 2 days later. It was weird. It was like early morning. I see the number. I'm like, oh God, here we go. And she's like, hi. I was like, hi. She's like, how are you? And I was like, great. She's like, really? I was like, yeah. I said, honestly, I'm like, I realized I don't need your stupid white apron to be amazing. I was like, I am amazing, apron or not. And I was like, so like, thanks for the opportunity, but like, I'm going to still kill it. Like, whatever I do. So like, good luck with your show. You know?
Yeah.
And it was probably like one of the worst seasons ever. No, and I say that, and actually, if you ask, because unbeknownst to them, I had told certain people how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't buy into the bullshit. So it was harder for them to produce that season because they weren't getting as much drama as they wanted because people knew what was happening. So I had planted the seed before I left. Like, yeah.
By the way.
I was like, just so we're clear, you know? And so it was a weird time, you know? But like, that's what everyone in this county remembers me for. Like back then, I think it's like much different now. Like usually it's gay stuff now, but like, yeah, gay stuff, acting.
Yeah.
Less so for teaching.
Yeah.
Which is like,
I didn't know you were a teacher for at least the first few years that I met you.
yeah. I always wonder what people think I really do during the day. They're like, what does he do? Like, what do I do? What did you think I did? Just crazy stuff?
I don't know. I thought maybe just like county stuff since you were the food master. So I'm like, maybe that takes up his day.
Oh, could you imagine?
Yeah.
Just food and drink all day long.
Yeah.
Is
I don't know.
wonderful,
Phone
yeah.
calls, emails to take. Who knows?
No.
But no, you're teaching the youth.
Trying every day.
Can't be easy.
So you went from sales to teaching.
Yeah.
Did you shift from sales into teachers college afterwards?
Yeah, I couldn't get into teachers college, so like English and history is the most common. We are
To teach.
Yeah, we're the no-name chips, and there's like 1,000 bags of us, and we're just out there waiting. But most people don't pick us unless we're the last ones on the shelf. So it took a long time. It took me 3 years to get into teachers college, and that was like disheartening every time because I just wanted to teach. Like that's all I really wanted to do. So I kept trying. People were like, go to the States. And I was like, I'm not going to the States. I was like, I don't understand paying $20,000, which now would be even way more than that, like probably $200,000. But to get a 1-year thing where I can just go back to university and get a whole new degree
Yeah.
for the same price. Like I know it's more of a time commitment, but I just didn't see the value in that. So I was like, no, they have to take me. At some point, they have to take me. And so it was only one school that said yes. It was on my third year, my third time applying. Lakehead, all the way up in Thunder Bay, said yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so you taught up there?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So it was like crazy that this person, I had never traveled. I had never been anywhere.
You grew up here.
I grew up here and I didn't leave.
Wow.
So like I had been to Montreal, I had been to like Washington, but like very rare and on a school trip, right? So like it wasn't like, hey, uproot your life and go drive 17 hours from here in the blistering cold where there's nothing and go live there. And I did. And it was a weird time.
How long did you do that for?
It was only for 6 months, so it wasn't that bad.
Okay.
But
you're in.
yeah. And then I got a job right away. And I was basically a full-time contract teacher, like in my second year of teaching. I only applied for a month. It was a good time for teachers at that point in time. But I would say too, like I worked hard for that. So like I was showing people like that I did care and that I wanted to do all the things. And that's how I started coaching basketball because they didn't have a basketball team. And I was like, well, you need to create need. Like they need to need you, and no one else will take this team over. So if I take this team, they gonna keep me because they're gonna be like, we need a basketball team.
Are you a basketball guy?
No.
Oh, so you just kind of did it.
I have been coaching basketball now for 16 years.
Wow. So you coach currently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I coached both of our girls' teams at Waterford. We made it all the way to Kwasa this year. I haven't been to Kwasa with a girls' team in probably like a decade. So that was really nice for me, like to go back. But yeah, it's nuts. Like now I can make up plays. Now I like know all of these things. And it's like, it's weird because I'm just a tiny, thick little gay man. But like, I'm just hawking up threes. You ask people, I can shoot threes. Like, it's nuts.
Damn.
Yeah, it's weird. But I played sports in high school. Like I was on the soccer team. So like, I know it's not the same sport, but I understand athletics. So like it was an
I feel
easy
like once you
transition.
play a team sport or two, you kind of can shift because like it's my first year playing baseball, but you know, I played hockey and other things, so it's
you understand rules. Like, like the idea, like the concept behind teamwork and all of those things. Like you get that.
Yeah, everybody has a role.
Yeah.
And there's plays and things like that.
Yeah.
Even in like I tell people I play ultimate frisbee, like that's where you throw the thing at the chains, right? I'm like, no, that's disc golf. Yeah. They're like, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, you know, it's kind of like football. There's a touchdown zone, but we do have set positions and set plays and defensive things. And they're like, oh, really? I just thought you just kind of throw a frisbee around.
Underrated sport.
Like
there are teams in Haldeman at the Haldeman high schools, not around here.
So I'm aware of that, and I taught my high school. I coached my high school team after I left, and I've pondered reaching out to high schools here, but I don't know if I have the time for it. I have the passion for it, but it's the time.
I don't even think it's the time. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
High school sports have gotten dangerous. Like there were multiple fights this year from spectators. Now, during COVID, we weren't allowed to have spectators.
Are you talking parents?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking, it's happened. Like people throwing down, like like fighting with referees. It was the fight with the ref. This man was like verbally just giving it to him. And the ref was like, sir, you need to leave or else this game is over. And then it started a fight in the crowd because they were like, get out of here, you jerk. It was nuts.
Some sports parents are crazy people. I used to play hockey, and moms would fight each other in the parking lot sometimes. Like grab their son's like hockey sticks were flying.
I watched a woman online the other day just destroy her glasses because her son lost in a wrestling match. And I was like, it's wrestling, or as we would say, wrestling. And then here, but like, isn't that nuts? Like people get like, it's the extreme reactions to things. Do you not find like people are far more extreme in reaction now than ever before?
Like
or is it just
volatile.
easier to see? Yeah.
Probably easier to see.
Yeah. Like people flip like easy.
I think, are you talking in person? Because I think with the internet and social media, you do see more clips. Like you see it more because there's just access to it. But
well, because people are, and that's the one thing. So teaching has become even crazier because at most points in time, we know they're always on Snapchat. So like they are literally this
canceling you
away from like recording you,
filming you.
Yeah.
Are there rules in that?
No.
So they can film you anytime they want to.
Well, technically no, because it would go against like a privacy policy thing. Like they shouldn't be posting your image or videos of you without your consent. But I don't think that's policed often enough. So like I feel like if you said, excuse me, you can't post that. You don't have my consent to post that. They would have to take it down, but the damage is already done. Once the video is already seen, it doesn't matter if it's taken down in like 2 seconds. Do we not remember Chris Evans and his shadow? But like, no.
Wait, say that again?
Chris Evans and his shadow?
No, I don't know this
He
reference.
accidentally posted a picture.
Oh.
It was just like an accident. It was an accident picture.
With an appendage-looking shadow, or is that what?
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
And the world learned something that day. That Captain America really is a real hero.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
A mighty Avenger. as we always say.
I missed this. When was this?
It was like a couple years ago.
Oh,
I
okay.
wasn't- yeah.
Yeah.
too
Well,
into
you
that
wouldn't.
one.
You boys wouldn't have been looking. I don't think.
It
I don't.
wouldn't,
I
it wouldn't
think
have been on our algorithm.
I think.
It would
Yeah.
have
I
been-
think your algorithm would have been like,
I think
Different.
I follow him
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
on Instagram.
it was like on his story for like the shortest of periods.
I wonder if you sometimes you're like, oh, that's an accident, but was it?
Well, I feel like if you're a mighty Avenger, you're not really
It
caring.
must have been when he got
You're-
that super.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a serum.
Sorry, Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah, serum. That's the word.
I don't think he really was like, wow, I can't believe all these people now know my terrible secret.
Awful secret.
Wow. Life is bad now.
Yeah.
And all these celebrities were commenting on it.
I miss this.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, everyone has a camera.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like when we went to school, well, I'm much older than you guys, but like cell phones were just really becoming popular. They didn't have cameras. You couldn't text with them. They were literally just for calling. And like once more things got added to them, it was like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? You know?
I think at the point I was in high school, they were pretty much computers at that point.
Yeah.
Like iPhone 4, I think I was in the middle of high school when that came out. Camera, games, social media apps. Like
The beer drinking app where you could like
Yeah.
drink the beer and the beer would go.
Yep.
Yeah. What? Simple
You know,
times.
That was a thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was just a
cool.
it looked like beer and then you could
You tilt the phone
Yeah.
and then it would like go in your mouth. It looked like it went in your mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad I never had these things.
It was just dumb apps. Like there was one that was a diamond and it cost $1,000 to buy, and all it was an image of a diamond.
Whoa.
But it was just like a haha, I have money type of app. It was like I paid $1,000 for this.
That's a genius actually.
Yeah, that would have been like 2010 around there.
Yeah, I would say like all of it has led to a drastic like shift in teaching. Like the kids are different for sure. Like they're not as aware of certain things. We find like really even recently more so like there's a gross sense of entitlement, but like a lack of overall like respect
Empathy.
for I don't think it's empathy. I think like they don't respect their space because they don't see it. So like they're so consumed by like single-minded vision that they don't see big picture. Like I think they can empathize with other people. Like I don't think because they see other people all the time, right? Like they're constantly seeing what you're doing or what I'm doing or whatever, and there's a comparison and whatever. And I think it's the idea of they can't just like sit in a space and respect the space because they're always in so many other spaces in their head. So like they're just not here. They're just not
as
here.
present.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy like the amount of just like garbage left behind and all of these things. And it's just like I don't have to pick up after myself because who cares?
Yeah.
You know?
Someone else will do it.
Yeah. Or I don't even think they actually care. It could be there. It could be there the next day and they'd be like, meh, whatever.
Shit.
And yeah. Right? It's just this idea of meh, who cares? And it's weird because you would also think like this is supposed to be, they're supposed to be the generation to fix the planet.
Yeah, this
That's-
isn't making me feel good about
I'm sorry, but
moving forward. I
Oh.
thought these kids were gonna be like
no, the old people have to fix the planet.
Well, and it's
Oh,
like
shit.
the generation above me made fun of our generation. It's each generation picks on the the previous one or the one upcoming. But yeah, it's got to be a scary time for a teacher, especially with this. It's social media, the pinnacle of social media.
Yeah, even like last year, we had a parent call in and complain about my Instagram. It was funny. It was actually after my was it the trackside one where you guys like did your straight faced
Oh.
and then I did a response, which was like the grainiest video of life, and it was me drinking the seltzer and be like yum, and then like whatever, and the complaint was I was drinking alcohol and I'm associated with the school.
Do they know that teachers drink alcohol?
Well, I said, but even in my bio, it says that I'm the food and drink ambassador for Norfolk County. So,
yeah.
You're also a human
promote
being.
food. I know. I was
and you're an adult, and you
And
have
you
a
weren't,
life
like,
outside the school.
inebriated or
yeah,
whatever.
I wasn't like, let's get lit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
you're
I
not
wasn't-
doing a beer bong or something. You're drinking out of a can and
Yeah.
promoting something local.
So it was like this crazy. I got pulled into the office and talked to about like, you know, like you have to be aware. And I was like, I'm 100% aware
Yeah.
of everything I post. And yeah, sometimes it's spicy. That's why my profile is called Extra Spicy Mayo. 'Cause I also don't feel the need to censor who I am. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't get that. Well, Cam from Blog Norfolk had asked me if we could do a cooking while high segment.
Yeah.
And he said, he was like, do you think you would get in trouble from the school board? And I said, let me look into this. So one of my Master Chef friends is actually, he works for Hootsuite. And so I asked him, and he said, actually, we just represented a teacher in BC who went through the same thing. The school board tried to fire him for like promoting marijuana or whatever. And it was like he won the lawsuit because it's legal. Like you're not
breaking
saying,
any laws.
No, and you're not saying like go buck wild and like let's hit it. Like I'm not bringing it into the class and being like, here, underage kids, let's eat
Let's
these
learn how to
cookies.
smoke some
Like
weed.
I'm going to show you how to make these edibles. Like that. And I said to him, I was like, yeah, we can do it anytime you want. And it never happened. But like, I wasn't afraid of that, you know? Like sometimes I think it's the overreactions of everyone else are not my problem, you know?
Good for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's just the time we're in right now. Everybody feels like their opinion matters and they can put it online. It's because everybody can put it online.
Yep.
So everybody could put their opinion online. Should they? Maybe not.
Well, and the thing is, like, you can also, there was a video that came out, I show it to my class sometimes, and it's this idea of, what do they call it? Oh, a culture of proximity. So it was, it's a YouTube video, I think it's like 27 minutes. VTech put it out, and it was this idea of how we connect now online. And so if you were into cold dipping, okay, linked in there.
Shout out to Joro.
Yeah. Which maybe one day.
One day.
If I ever am not on heart medication,
Yeah.
I'll be like, hey,
I'll get you
let's
there.
dip. So if you were looking for those people back in the day, it would have been really hard for you to find them. You would have just had to like show up at the beach. Maybe you lucked out. They were going at the same time as you. Maybe they weren't. And you would have never seen them. And you just would have cold dipped by yourself. And you'd have been like, well, this kind of sucks. I wish there were more people.
Yeah.
And you would have talked to people and maybe could have got a couple more. But what happened when the internet came around and all these different like social media forums and the AI with finding the algorithms is that you were able to find people. You were able to say, hey, come dip with me. You dip, we dip, let's dip, you know? And it happens, but it also works negatively. So like you find more racist neo-Nazis. These things, like if you're in some odd group, and I'll say it odd, that's fine. Anyone listening who's like, I'm a neo-Nazi, I'm not odd. I'll be like, well, maybe you are. Let's have a talk. But it's easier for you to find those, what we used to call niche groups. And now it's going to be found for you. So it's going to use your search history. It's going to use all those things and like plunk you into, you might like
Yeah. Oh, you're
fascism.
You're a racist.
So you're a racist. Yeah. How about trying this? You know?
Yeah. I've had some
Group of
odd
like
suggestions in my search, and I was like, why are you showing me this? It's like,
But apparently too, like if we were close to each other, so like if we spent time with each other and whatever I'm looking up starts to show up.
I'm gonna start getting Chris Evans
Shadow
on my
pics.
phone. Yeah.
You'd be like, You're gonna be like, oh, wow. Mighty soldier.
yeah. Yeah, they know
Captain
it's
America
proximity.
Yeah. So then it starts to, because one of my teaching friends talked about it, how like he was looking something up, and then it started like appearing on his friends' phones. They were like, "Why do I keep getting all these ads for this?" And he was like, "Oh, that's my fault.
I have no idea.
That's my bad, boys. Sorry." But like, isn't that crazy? Is that idea of how it like becomes almost infectious, right? But like that leads to many things too, like all of the people in Ottawa, like convoy support and stuff like that, right? Like all of those people before, they would not have been able to amass so quickly. You know, we saw it with drag story time. All of these people said they were going to come out and protest. 8 people showed up, like to protest.
People are a lot louder.
Oh,
behind
online,
their screen,
yeah. And there were like 60 counter protesters. So then they just looked really dumb.
Yeah.
But like online, they were the most vocal. There were more negative comments than there were like people fighting back against them.
Which I find is common. The outrage you see is just a small group, which was my fear starting this is like, you know, if I slip and say something not politically correct or something like that, that a mob is going to come after me. But
Oh, like you'll be canceled?
not so much canceled, but attacked online at least. But I feel like it's unavoidable.
Yeah, like you.
And I know who I am. I'm a good person. I'm not there to hurt anybody. Yeah, exactly.
Trolls are going to troll.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter if you actually said the right thing. They would harp on you for not saying what they wanted you to say.
Yeah. And there's 2 sides to everything. There's, you know, we do live in a very conservative area. I'm not so much conservative, but it's like, it just is what it is. And you just have to try to navigate it.
Even at the school, we see a lot of posts lately because now there's all these, and I don't know, like I'm not on Facebook, we know this, but there are all these like Waterford Today or Simcoe Today. But then what you see popping up is Waterford Today Uncensored.
Oh.
I don't know if you've seen that yet.
No.
Apparently it is fire, like crazy.
Interesting. I'm going to look this up.
So like, and they say the things that people police them for in the other forum. And it's like, so you can say the racist thing, you can say the homophobic thing, you can say, and it's like crazy.
Do they post from anonymous accounts or are they?
No. Most of them just say what they want to say. Damn. And well, there's that kind of, social media has like empowered people in such a weird way. It's like this idea of, oh, I can say it because like
someone will jump up and.
Yes, someone will be like, oh, yeah, that's right. Thanks, Doug. Thanks for saying that for me. I was feeling it too, but you said it and I appreciate you. Like, get it.
Yeah.
You know? And it's this idea of so like some of the teachers in the school are on the pages monitoring for what is said about us and about the school. Because you kind of have to be like, you're PRing all the time, right? Especially in a social media era. Like we are also this social entity. And all the comments are like, oh, that woke Waterford High School. Woke, woke, woke. And I'm like, oh, it's me. They're talking about me. I was like, but like, I'm okay with it. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay being woke. Because I guess that means I'm not a racist or a homophobe. So like,
I don't even know what woke means nowadays.
if you ask the kids, I asked my grade 12s to define it. I said, what does it mean? And they were like, you know stuff. And I was like, right?
You're intelligent.
But if you asked somebody, ask somebody. Next time you see somebody use the term woke, ask them what it means. And it's crazy. There is actual clips of this, like
I think
Twitter.
it means different things for different people. I feel like people may define it differently.
Well, the original definition,
yeah,
is comes back to like Black social justice movement, and the idea of being woke was that you were aware of the mistreatment that was being done to Black people in the United States and in Canada, and you were woke. You were aware of that. Later on, it started to encompass like LGBTQ 2SIA stuff. So like then we kind of became involved in that. And now like if you ask someone who uses it as a negative term, it just means like we're too sensitive or we're like, I don't know. And that idea of how can you be too sensitive to the issues that are going on in the world? Like how can you be too aware? Like, oh, I realize there's racism and homophobia and transphobia in the world. I think it sucks. Wow. that makes me a terrible human being. Like, what? Really? Oh, okay. Well, great, I guess. Like, I don't know. It's such a weird thing. But we get it. We get it from students all the time, too. Like, they'll say it in class, this is woke. And you're like, oh, God, here we go.
Shut up, stupid kids.
You're like, oh, here we go. You know? And then, but then you have to, like, take time out of your day to explain, like there are other people in the world. It's crazy. But, like, I know this room is real white, but, like, there are not white people in the world, you know? Like, they exist.
Yeah.
And, like, we have to recognize that.
Yeah.
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 And you teach history, so I'm sure
Yeah.
you teach them a lot of things about all the terrible shit that has happened in the past.
Or do you? Yeah. What's in the curriculum?
I think, like, oh, yeah, you can show them all the stuff. So it's just, like, but most teachers don't get there. So, like, most people, especially in history, don't make it very far past World War II. Like, they spend so much time on World War II, but they don't understand, like, that's been so long ago, like almost 100 years. Like, we're getting closer to a point where that's going to be 100 years ago, that things have moved so much further past that. And, like, it's now all of the things that we're encountering, like, where are the lessons post-COVID? Like, how did we change? How did that create history? You know? And, like, I think you can't spend so much time so far back. Now you have to look at the stuff like that happened in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and see, like, how we got here and how maybe we've fallen back a bit. Because it just seems like we were progressing and then we kind of, like, jumped back a little, you know?
In what way?
It's like in attitude and opinion. I think people have become harsher and, like, more negative. I don't know. I just see that, like, I think technology has done a lot with it. And, like, I know we're making a podcast and people are going to use technology to listen to this, but, like, I think once parents stopped actively parenting, so, like, what I mean by actively parenting is I'm Drew's dad. We're Drew's dads. In this scenario, we're Drew's dads.
We're your dads.
You couldn't have gotten any luckier. Your gay dads are the best gay dads. And so we tuck him in at night. We read him a story. We get him to repeat the words. We play games with him. He watches us cook. We do all the things. At no point in time are we like, here, shove technology in front of your face and be like, play with this for the next half hour while I get dinner ready. Like,
they're not watching you now.
No. So, like, here it's that idea of you're actively spending time teaching your kid how to do the things that are required to be successful in life. Like reading, writing, cooking. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, basic skills.
Communication skills.
Yes.
Which is
like not just mashing buttons on a screen.
Drew can check mine. I'm sure it's fine, but
yeah, not just mashing buttons on a screen till you learn what mashing those buttons means.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can learn about it, but you need to put it into practice.
Yeah. So it's that idea of,
cool.
I think, like, once people stopped actively parenting, it created this, like, detriment to all of society, because I think they were losing skills as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, how to be more compassionate, how to spend time with other people and prioritize spending time with other people, how to shut it down, like how to shut it off. Like, I would say people overwork now. People overcommit to so many things and underperform. That's actually been our motto for the last couple of years at the school. I always tell people it's like overcommitment, underperforming is what we get from so many people now. Like, yeah, I'll do all these things, but then you never really do them well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we see that from, like, so many people around us and probably ourselves sometimes too.
I struggle with that. Yeah. I want to do too many things, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
But you can't. It's impossible.
Well, like, the problem is not you doing that. The problem is you not prioritizing that. Why don't you do the things that you are doing very well?
Mm-hmm.
Why not, like, passable is not passable. You know, like this idea of I should be doing everything to the best of my ability. And if I'm not, why am I doing that? Why am I committing to that? If I'm not going to give 100% to it, then why am I giving to it at all? Why don't I find something that would be better, where my time is better spent? You know?
Well, and I think the secret sauce to that is finding something you actually care about.
Yeah.
Because if you don't care about it, doesn't matter.
Yeah, like I take student teachers all the time. I have a student teacher right now, and I tell him and I tell them all that teaching is a huge commitment, right? So like I am constantly restructuring assignments, finding new materials. If the kids are sitting there working on something, I'm looking up new books to use with them so that they're getting the most out of their experience. I want them to be engaged. I want them to be interested. We're doing, like, I'm up with technology. I'm doing all the things. I know their language, which is terrifying.
You sound like a great teacher.
Well, listen, I do the things, but like
some teachers just do the curriculum and then they leave.
No, but I just think that's a disservice to everybody because like the world has changed. So like we don't use Shakespeare. And I actually had an argument about this with an educator like a month ago. And she said, well, I know I sent you that thing on Shakespeare. And I said, I didn't want it. I said, thank you for sending it to me. I deleted it. And she said, why? And I said, we don't teach that here. And she said, don't you see the point of it? And I said, no. And she looked at me and I said, this is the 21st century. I'm like, never have we ever had students struggle more with literacy skills and language skills. I was like, so
let's concentrate on that.
I said, if I'm already getting them to try to read more accurately and write more accurately, why would I try to get them to do all of that in a language they don't even speak? I said, that just puts another wall in between me and them.
I hated Shakespeare.
Well, I didn't. So like I studied it all through university. I've read every Shakespeare play. It's like I know them all. I took all the courses. And I love Shakespeare. And I think he was brilliant. And I think his stuff. And I think like if it's taught properly.
Yeah.
But it takes so much time.
Yeah.
And those skills are not necessary skills for learners in the 21st century. So like you don't have to learn how to translate something because Google will do that for you. Mm-hmm. So like, why are we sitting here forcing them to learn this archaic skill that they're never going to put into place? They're never just going to show up somewhere and be like, oh my God, that is Middle English. I can't believe this menu was written in Middle English. They're not going to find that, you know?
I think what I took from Shakespeare is like story structure because I think he invented the hero's journey or the concept of the hero's journey or something like that.
Well, it's just this idea of like Shakespeare basically was writing with what they call like the 7 archetypes of stories. So they're like Romeo and Juliet is one of them. It's just this like forbidden love story between two people. It happens everywhere, right? Yeah. It's just derived from history.
Yeah.
But it's this idea he had basic concepts that were familiar to all of us, and that his genius lied in the fact that he could write for the lower class and the upper class at the same time. And so like look at that, right? And look at a movie and be like, hey, did you watch that? And they're like, yeah. You're like, that's just Romeo and Juliet. And they're like, what? You're like, yeah, it still exists. Like,
yeah, they're applying the story structure without the old English.
Yeah, that's all you need is that. You're like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. And they're like, all right. And you're like, yeah, Shakespeare was a great dude. And I always say to people, Shakespeare would actually be pissed if he knew that we were using his stuff still, because that man hustled. Like his game was on it because he did everything he could to get the attention of the queen, to get his plays to be like founded and all of these things so that he could make bank and so that he could be famous. So he would be pissed to know that we weren't allowing new modern artists to do that same thing. And I always say to people, part of my job as a teacher is to show these kids what they could be. Well, what am I showing Drew? Hey, you could be a famous playwright in 500 years. But you'd have to be
dead. But
you'll
never see it.
But you'll be dead and you'll never see your fame. And you'd be like, huh?
That sounds bullshit.
You're like, I'd rather try for my rap career.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes.
He was famous then, but not as famous as he is now.
Correct,
yeah,
right?
Okay.
And so it's just this idea of, why would you do that to somebody? You know? So like promote modern, like we just read modern plays at Waterford, and it's just like, and the kids have so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that idea of when you go to see a show, like if they're going to go to a Mervis show or a Stratford show or whatever, they're probably going to see something more modern, like Rocky Horror Picture or like Little Shop or something like that. they're going to see something new where they understand what the characters are saying, you know? And it's that idea of like, see yourself in the room. Like if you can't, like, we're not speaking in like Shakespearean English.
It's unrelatable for them. It's hard to relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember having to write tests on it. I'm like, I don't know what they're saying. And I didn't have a great teacher, so she wouldn't really explain it.
Well, it's hard too, right? Because like I always say, and this goes back to the whole sales thing, is that teaching is sales. So like I'm still in sales. I stand up in the front of the room and I try to sell you on a product. So like whatever idea I'm trying to communicate to you that day. And if you're not buying it, then my sales pitch is shitty. Do you know what I mean? Like I have to know where to reach you so that you will actually connect with that. You know, it's that idea. And like you can't go into a classroom being like, oh, I'm going to give them the same sales pitch that I've given these kids for the last like 10 years. Well, people aren't the same. So like these kids don't want to read about that. They want to read about like violence and action and all these things. So you change the book because that's what they want. These kids are nerdy. They want like a Harry Potter. Like, you know what I mean? Like you have to know your audience and be like, okay. It's like going to someone's house and being like, hey, I made you this delicious meal. It's like steak, surf and turf, all these things. And Ash is like, I don't eat meat. And you're like, oh, well, you can look at it. I'm sure you'll get something out of it.
Taste the butter.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't just assume that there's all of these things, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard. Every student has different interests, but you're teaching one subject, so. Yeah. The biggest problem I had with high school teachers was them treating you as if you were still in preschool. Because at the end of high school, some of you are 18, 17. I know that's really young now that I'm 30, but when you are 17 and 18, you're like, oh, I just wish this teacher, treated me like an adult or not a 12-year-old, you know? I always despise those teachers.
I always talk to people. Sometimes that's like my downfall is I talk to everyone like they're just a real person.
Yeah.
Like but like sometimes people are like, did you just say that? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And I was like, oof, hope I don't get a call tomorrow. And it's like, but you know how you have like friends where you look at them and you're like, I know I can tell you the truth. Like,
yeah.
But if it was that other friend, I gotta only give them like 30% of that truth because they would like cry on the floor all night or get really mad at me and then like delete me from the group chat. And you're like, it's the same when you read like a student and parents. Like this is a terrible story. One of the funniest stories was a political person in our area. I was teaching her child. And I'll say who it was Kim Hoffman. And she laughed about this. We had an interesting encounter about this, but her son is like deathly allergic to peanuts. And so he's in my class. But high schools are not aware. We're not like nut free. So we are aware you have an allergy. Stay away from peanuts. Do you know what I mean? So he sat in front of me every day. And he was beside my favorite student. She was like the best. So like blunt and all of these things. And every day, it was after lunch, I'd open up my snack cup and I'd eat my peanuts every day. And 3 months into the class, he looked up at one point and he said, "Are you eating peanuts?" And I was like, "Yes." He was like, "I'm deathly allergic to peanuts." I was like, "I am aware." And he was like, "I could die." And I was like, "Well, don't make me throw them at you." And he was like, that's not funny. And I said, "Yeah,
Did
I
you
know."
raise a peanut?
I said, "I know." And then he was like, "I can't believe you're eating peanuts in front of me." And the girl beside him turns and she said, "He's been eating peanuts in front of you for the last 3 months and you haven't said anything." And she's like, "You also are still alive, so you're fine."
Yeah.
And then he just looked and he went home and he told her. He told his mom, and parents' night was like 2 days later. And she came up to me, she's like, "You trying to kill my kid?" I said, "No, But the option is always there.
Oh my
Did
god.
you think it was funny? Or?
And she laughed. Yeah, we
that's
laughed.
good.
And it was a moment. And I said, he was clearly fine, you know? But like sometimes that's crazy. Like you don't know how people are gonna take humor, you know? Like you're like, ooh, can I actually say this?
It's fun when you get away with.
Yes.
I like to
Push.
Yes.
I like
The
your
envelope?
humor. Yeah, we're on the same page. I think our humor is very similar.
Yeah.
But I've said things to people and they like sometimes offend. I'm like, oh, I didn't mean that in an offensive way. That's my humor.
Oh,
It's very dry.
I wouldn't say that.
I
No?
double down.
Yeah.
Double down.
Oh,
Just bury
yeah, okay.
yourself
I
if
will
you
not
have to.
double down.
Oh, you don't. I don't.
No, because I don't want them.
You don't. Yeah.
Double down.
I don't want them to think I'm actually shitting on them.
Oh, well.
I'll just accept it.
Sometimes.
If you lose the battle, you might as well just lose the war.
Sometimes
Nice.
you have to hand them the roll of toilet paper and be like, clean yourself off. You know, and you're like, sorry. Yeah, there are those times where you're like, you say a joke, and it doesn't land well.
Well, there are people who actually can't understand sarcasm. Like it's a real thing.
Correct. There was one of my teaching appraisals. The vice principal said, many people don't get your sarcasm. And I said, I'm not sarcastic. And she said, yeah, I know. And I said, I'm just honest. She's like, yeah, it's a lot. And I was like, I said, well, I guess that's their problem then. And I said, okay. I have a sign in my room that a student bought me that says, I'm not actually funny. I'm mean, but people just think I'm funny.
That's great.
And I posted it online after the person gave it to me, and another student tagged someone else in it. And I said, and no, I knew what was happening. And I was like, I hope you're listening, Shannon. And and I said, I know what this is about, and I was mean. And I was like, okay, I'll double down on this.
Yeah, you got
I said, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to like, oh look, he's admitting to it. He's mean.
Yeah.
I'm the original Regina George.
I am, bitch.
Here we are.
Cheers to that. I gotta go for a washroom break. Can we pause?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
We can pause.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Yeah.
Just a tap. Might be another record. That's okay. I'll figure it out later. We're back, ladies and gentlemen,
And everyone in between.
and everybody in between.
It's 2024. It's like someone made a "that's what she said" joke the other day, and I said, no, that's what they said. I said, you never know. Why you pigeonholing it?
It's true. I always say that's what she said because I'm such an Office fan.
Yeah.
And it's just repeated constantly.
Yeah.
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 I remember him doing that at some acceptance speech too. It was really funny.
We added it in our musical that we wrote last year. A whole joke of it was someone said, like, that's what she said, and then the person beside them was supposed to be non-binary, and they were like, no, that's what they said. It's 2024. And the audience laughed, but some people were a little less woke than others, and so they were sleeping on that joke.
Yeah.
Did you get it?
No.
Asleep.
Oh, there you go. Went right under me.
Sorry.
Or over me.
It's too cerebral.
You're just on another level. Does like we were talking about comedians in between here, and like if a comedian jokes about those kinds of topics, are you ever offended by that, or is it can you understand the humor in it?
I think you have to take it to the place that we would normally take it in, like a hangout situation.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're going to see a comedian, you understand that comedian is probably going to make a joke about physically anything they could possibly make a joke about. So it could just be about the color of your shirt personally. That person would be like, wow, that's what you wore tonight, eh? Like coming all the way to the city from wherever crick you crawled out of, and that's the shirt you wore, you know? And like that, and like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It could happen. I went to see Margaret Cho once at like a Just for Laughs festival in Toronto. I did not expect her to start talking about going to Anna Nicole Smith's house after she died just so she could steal all of her medication. I didn't expect.
Oh my god!
Fuck.
I didn't expect that to be a moment of comedy, but there we were, and I wasn't like, wow. As someone who takes medication, I was offended that you, like, you know it's gonna happen, but like also you're like saddened by it because you're like, girl, that was a moment.
Stings a little bit.
You're like, oof. But like we talked about it, and I had my kids read about it and write about it. This idea of like, are you attached to the joke after you've said the joke? So you make the racist joke in your comedy set. Are you attached to the joke when you leave the comedy set? Like, you're not a racist afterwards if you're not like continuing on with those racist jokes. If you're saying it in that audience to do that thing because that's part of your set, well, that's kind of what you do. If we go back to history, Nazis, not all Nazis hated Jews. They needed to make money, and doing what they did to Jewish people was how they made money. So like some of them felt terrible for what they did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they still did it. Like you can still be like, okay, yeah, I made that fat joke today. And like looking out of the audience, you're like, wow, I made a fat joke. As a fat person, I made a fat joke. Wow, how rich is that, right? And like I still did it, but I'm not going to leave that comedy club and be like, wow, I'm a fat phobic piece of garbage.
Yeah.
Like, oof. But it's even if we're hanging out as friends. If we're hanging out as friends, I'm going to, if how well we know each other, I will make comments like, you might actually say a homophobic slur to me and I'm going to laugh because we're friends and we understand each other and there's no malice in the way you're using it. But if you use that word in a way that there was malice behind it, you know the intent of the word.
Yeah.
You know the intent
It's
of the
that
word.
concept of banter.
Yes.
You pick on your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, you don't mean it at all, but you like to point things out.
In schooling, we call it like friendly bullying, but there is a line between like banter and bullying, right? Like if I'm always like calling you a name, there is at some point I need to learn when I can and when I can't do that, when it's not funny.
Yeah.
Like when the joke is not landing.
Yeah.
You know, we just talked about that before. Like, and then do you double down or you're like, oof.
Yes, sometimes.
Sorry. You're like, yep, I'm a dick. And you're like, all right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It is hard because, like, yet again, with social media and what people post, I've unfollowed some people recently just because, like, I didn't necessarily agree with what they were posting. Like, I unfollowed a student, like a former student, who, like, I love their family, have, like, had beers with them since, like, would call them an actual friend, but I can't anymore because of, since COVID, like, the things that they've been posting. So, like, anti-trans things, all of these things that I'm just like, I can't vibe with that. And like, I don't know where this is coming from and I don't know why. Like, you were never like that. So like, how did that change? And like, I'm not going to support that and I don't want to see it. And like, but first, before unfollowing, like had conversations and I was like, why are you doing this? Like,
Really?
Why do you?
Good for you.
But I'm an educator. You have to do that though.
Yeah.
You can't, the only way you ever stop things, and a lot of people in like woke movements will even tell you like silence is the worst thing that you could possibly do. So like and we've all been there because this is where we live, but like you're at a family gathering and drunk Uncle Pete says like a really racist joke that's like super inappropriate and he's not joking. And people are like awkwardly laughing and like no one's saying, Uncle Pete, you can't say that anymore. Like, it's 2024, man. Like, not funny.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But like, you actually have to say Uncle Pete.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, or else Uncle Pete's going to tell the joke. And Uncle Pete's actually going to tell the joke when cousin Sarah brings like her Muslim boyfriend home because everyone else has let him make it okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You
And,
kind of
like-
got to correct behavior or else.
And like, the sad part is we've probably all seen that too.
oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like we've seen the joke said in the room by the person who thinks they have immunity. And you're like, no. You're like, that was not okay. And then like no one says anything and you feel really uncomfortable. And it's like, if you don't lean into that and say, what are we learning from this? Just not that Uncle Pete's an actual filthy racist and he really likes the Budweiser.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe Uncle Pete can learn. Maybe. You know?
That's the hope.
Yeah. So like that, I reached out first and was like, "Hey, where are you getting all this from?" And clearly it was the internet. Clearly it was a spiral of like misinformation. And I was like, none of these things are true. And I was like, I would like to make a recommendation. If you ever have a moment to talk to a trans person, ask them how they feel about their life and what their process was before you like go into harsh judgment, you know? Like, I wouldn't just say someone who is an alcoholic going through like a sobriety journal or journey is like a weak human because they struggle with becoming sober. You know, I wouldn't just be like, well, you're weak or you're terrible.
I think a lot of people's impulses are just to attack and not understand or try to understand.
Well, we demonize things we don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like when we don't understand it, we're like, oof.
Different things are scary.
Sometimes. Yeah. Like polar dips. No, I'm kidding. But like but you've experienced that on that level is like people being like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally different level. I know what you're...
And it's a totally different thing, but it's just this idea of like, it's a mindset type of deal. So like once you get into a different mindset and you accept that and see that for what it really is, like you can just, you're fine with it.
Yeah.
You know? It's all mindset. It's all just the way we think. Like I always say to people when people are like, people are too old. They'll never change their language. They're too old. It's how they were when they grew up. And I said, yeah, bread was like 25 cents when they grew up and they're still paying $2 for a loaf of bread. I said, they changed that.
Yeah. I
said, I'm like, and $2 is cheap now. Like, that's crazy. They went from paying like 10 cents a tank of gas to like $2 a liter. Like, if you can change how you act in that way, how can you not change to just accept things for how they are now?
So no pass for 90-year-old Nana in the nursing home.
Nana knows. Nana knows. Nana is up on social media. She's making TikToks. She gets it.
No.
I think my Nana understands Facebook better than I do.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. She's way more active on there.
I didn't know old people were.
Oh yeah. But that's like Facebook is the old people one. And so then like my generation, because I'm older than you significantly, would be the Instagram. Yeah.
No, there's no way.
How old do you think I am? Let's play the game. ASMR.
32.
I was going to say high 32.
No, I
like
actually do know how old he is.
Like what's a high 30?
Like 37, 38.
Interesting.
Young 40s.
You look good for your age, Jason.
I'm 43.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So 43.
I didn't
so
think that
like
was significantly older, but
I think so. Well, it's 13. I'm 13 years older than you. I could be your dad.
Yeah.
If I had
I don't think 13-year-olds are dads.
Well,
It is a thing.
Really?
I'll have my dad on. He's a paramedic, but he's delivered babies from like 12-year-olds before.
Oh, yeah, that's...
listen.
Yeah.
I have taught pregnant grade 9s. Just
Really?
throwing it. Oh yeah.
Grade 9s.
That's 14.
mean-
So like, I'm just saying.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
That's odd. I don't know.
Well, let's just hope the dad is also around the same age.
Oh yeah.
If you're catching my drift.
They were. Yeah. Oh, that's a different podcast.
Yeah.
To Catch a Predator.
Yeah.
No, I just think. Where was I going? Damn it.
Sorry, we went off the rocker
Age.
here.
Oh,
Nana doesn't get
so
a
like
pass.
my generation is like the Instagram generation, and then
So is
you
ours.
guys, yeah, and then but you're more into like, oh no, it's the ones under us, like the Gen Zs that are the Snapchats and the TikToks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're a millennial, are you not?
yeah,
Yeah.
At the very end,
And I'm at the other end.
Yeah.
But we're both millennials.
yeah, we're in the same range.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's like, I would say like, so many people know how to use technology so well now. Like when I worked at Bell, having to teach old people how to text, like to use T9, was like, yeah, you heard me, T9.
Oh, yeah, I
Some
remember.
people are looking that up right now. They're like, what is
Every
T9?
letter took like
You're
3
like,
clicks.
to have to teach old people how to use technology was insane. And like we would often try to sell them certain phones that were much easier for them to use because we knew that it would just be less struggles for them. And like that, because that's crazy, right? But now technology is so intuitive and interactive that like these old people are just killing it. Like they're posting, oh yeah, like you have seen those videos of like that old lady on Instagram who's talking about her dating life and now she's got like And once they get big on the gram, they getting on the TikTok. And now you got grannies on TikTok.
I always just assumed there was like a niece or nephew behind the camera during those, being like, "Hey, grandma, tell me that story." Like,
Isn't that wild? But it's probably like a 90-year-old man.
There's a viral
her husband.
there's a viral Twitch streamer who's like a retired Vietnam vet. I think it's he fought in one of the wars, Gulf War, something like that. But he plays shooter video games.
I was gonna say,
And I think he was a sniper in the I don't know. He was a sniper, but he snipes on these games, and he's ridiculously good at it. And he's in his 60s or 70s, and because of his background, like
makes
he
it
has
way
this
more
massive
interesting.
fan base.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
actually
there's
wild.
Even just the like 2 Italian ladies that are like from Jersey who are like ripping on all these Italian cooking videos. They're like, "This is not Italian," and it's like they're doing all these things, and they're probably in their 70s.
That's great.
And like, it's insane how to bring it back to that idea is how they can adapt to so many things, but not always
not
all of the
racism.
things. Do you know what I mean?
Something stay.
Isn't it? Well, isn't that crazy? It's because technology gives them something. So like for them to adapt to technology and all of those things, like it gives them something. They get something from that to just be more accepting. Doesn't really benefit them.
Yeah.
Does that
true.
sound crazy?
Oh no, I had a racist, really old aunt that in the home, and it would always just be like a slap on the wrist when she'd say something wrong. I'd be like, "You can't say that," and she's like, "Well."
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. It's like, ooh, I don't know. It happens a lot around here too. But I think some people say that it's because we live in a small area. I would like to say that in itself undermines how much racism and like transphobia and homophobia and misogyny happens in urban centers as well. Like we know that's happening. People are hateful. So like it's not just because you're a banjo playing bumpkin that makes you racist. You are racist because you were raised that way, and you see value in making those comments.
Yeah, and some people are just unhappy.
Correct.
And they want you to feel the same way.
Yeah, and some people feel like they are getting less than they deserve in life because someone else is now getting the same as them, not even necessarily more. Do you know what I mean? Like marriage.
And they don't think they deserve it.
I talk about this, straight people dating. I always make fun of it because I think it's hilarious, but it's such a weird thing. Gay people, it's not the same. That's a whole different podcast. That's an after dark podcast. You got to pay for that one because I can't say the things that I would say. But anyways, this idea of like marriage equality has only existed in this country since 2005. So it's only been for 18 years. Well, I'm 43. So I was 25 when that happened. So most people, and I would say, I look at you, when did you start dating Ashley?
18.
Yeah. So you were together with an end goal in mind at some point, and that happened recently, right? And so like you had this idea of, I can get married, I can have children with her, I can do all of these things. There are possibilities. When I was 18, none of those things were a thing. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't until after I'd already graduated from university, had a career, you know, already done all of these things, that they were like, "Oh, hey, just a little heads up, you can get married now." Well, I've spent like more than half my life like not even.
At what age did you
I never
know?
thought about that.
Did you know you were gay?
Oh, okay. Thank you for asking me that question. Follow-up question. What age did you know you were straight? Did you always know?
Yes.
Same. Because
Okay.
it's not, I always find that funny about straight people is they'll always ask you, when did you know you were gay? I was like, when did you know you were straight? And they're like, but I've always known. I was like, same.
I only ask because people usually aren't.
It's, the real question is when, it's not when did you know, it's when did you accept it? So you never had to accept that you were straight just because like everyone around you was straight and everything was fine.
Yeah.
So you never had to really be like, oh, well, I don't really like ladies, but I had to be like, girls, gross. Great for friends.
Sometimes they
That's
are.
about it. And it's like, it's this idea of this is the other question I think is funny. When people are like, well, how would you know if you've never been with a girl? And I was like, well, how would you know if you've never been with a dude? And they're like,
Touche.
Is that your pickup line at the bar? Or
Drew, we won't talk about how many times it's worked.
Cheers to that.
Taking a drink.
I only ask because it's like, well, obviously I'm not gay, so I don't understand what that's like. But just pre-puberty, sexually active, like I wasn't sure if that had a factor in knowing.
No, I always knew. It was like this idea of, like, just you guys always knew. You would look at somebody and be like, yes.
yeah,
You're like, yeah, I like that person.
That gets the motor
You're like,
going.
yeah. But even just more than that, you'd be like, I like that person. Like, this is great, you know?
Yeah.
And it's more so, I think you realize that it's who you chase around. It's who you, when you're in like elementary school and you're like chasing people around and you're like making those friendships and whatever. And you're like, I know we're just kids at that point, but you're kind of like starting to create relationships. And then you get into high school where it becomes very awkward. And especially like for people who aren't straight, because everyone around you is having like easy relationships, like easy. Like you could literally sneeze on someone and be like, do you want to go out with me? And they'd be like, all right. And you're like, but like at least wipe my arm off first. And it wouldn't be weird. Whereas because everyone in the room, the majority of people in the room, you would probably think 90% of the people in the room are straight.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to strike out.
The dating pool is much smaller.
Yeah, you're not going to strike out. Whereas if you're not, you're looking at him, you're like, I really like him, but I don't know.
You don't know.
He likes me. And then it's awkward because then you do this. Hey, how are you? And then you're like, you want to, because even if you ask, if I asked you, if we were teenage boys and I asked you, hey, do you want to hang out? You'd be like, sure. Yeah. What do you want to do? I'd be like, let's play video games or whatever, right? And we would do that. And it would just be the things that we want to do anyways. You could be completely oblivious. You could be like, is this like you in your head? You'd be like, man, we're playing video games.
This guy's great.
We're eating Doritos. This is the best. He snuck some beers from his parents' fridge. This is cool. And then it's like, you're like, okay, see you tomorrow. And then like you leave. But he asks you again, and you're like, yeah, man, I had the greatest time of my life. Meanwhile, like there might be crazy mixed messages. Yeah. Because you don't know.
Were there ever situations where you maybe suspected, but they just weren't going to come out yet?
Listen, it was a rough time because like being gay in the 90s was a brutal moment because it's like everything, like AIDS was on the tail end of being like really super publicized. So like so many gay people had died. And there was just so much sadness. So to be gay was to really mean that you were ill or there was something wrong with you and all of those things. So it was terrifying. And that's all you ever saw on TV was gay people dying. So like if you can just imagine what that's like to just see people, like your people dying. You're like, what? You're like, I don't want this. I don't want this, right? You're terrified. And so there was that kind of moment. And even for me, like I didn't come out by choice in high school. So like I told somebody because I needed to tell somebody because I just couldn't hold it in anymore. Like I just needed somebody to know, which is also so crazy. Like you wouldn't understand that concept because it's like maybe if you had, and I don't want to equate this to an illness, but maybe if you had like a condition or something like up with you that you didn't really like, oh, I'm dyslexic or, oh, I have ADHD or whatever. It's not easy to say those things to people at first. Do you know what I mean? Because you feel like there's so much stigma attached to it. So I remember telling this girl, and then that was a Friday, and she went to a house party on the weekend, like a sleepover girls party, and everyone knew by the time Monday happened. So like she had told everyone there.
In my mind, it's like she tells somebody that she thinks she can trust, and then that person tells somebody they think they can.
She just legit said it.
Just
and I was
under
like,
the bus.
Wow. So then like that was brutal. But then in many cases, to be honest with you, and I know it's like, how can you look at this way? But in many cases, she freed me from the chains that were probably holding me down. Yeah. So like I didn't have to live a closeted life. Like it was bad. I will say that. And like the bullying was terrible. And I did have to like become probably a meaner person just to be able to deal with it. And that was the reality of life, I guess. But it was crazy. There were definitely people who you knew, but they wouldn't come out. So, like, there was this guy, I remember, after high school. He was still in grade 12, and I came back to see everyone on my, like, first year of university. And he said, hey, would you want to go on a date? And I laughed. And I said, no. And he was like, why? And I was like, because you're a coward.
Oh, he wasn't.
And
he wasn't out at this. I see.
He looked at me and he said, what? And I said, you made me go through that alone. And I was like, and you knew. And you saw how terrible that was. I said, I would never want to date someone like you.
Shit.
And he just looked at me. I was like, so no, but thanks. And it was just that idea of, it was so crazy. Do you know what I mean? Like, to be, because you're the only idiot in the village, basically. And you're just like, okay, here I am. But you know you're not. You know you're not. You're like, trust me. Like, the things going on behind closed doors, you know you're not. And it's just like that in itself. But you don't say anything, you know? Like, I have students. I would say, I don't think life is easier for people now. I just think, like, it's more, there's more representation. So I think people can see themselves. I think that's a huge part of, like, why I live my life, like, so open and so honest.
You can find each other, but you still have to go through the struggles.
I just want these kids to see that, like, you can be, and not even just kids. I want everyone in this community to see that I can be a 43-year-old successful gay man. Like, I make money. I do the things. People like me. Not everyone. And that's okay. But, like, I have a really great life. And, like, so can they. They don't have to move away. They don't have to go to the city to be who they are. You can do that here, and people accept you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm your second person on this podcast. So, like, clearly I am doing okay.
Fourth, but yes. Yes. Sorry, Jason. Sorry.
I wasn't gonna tell him.
Other Drew, you should have just looked at me and been like, no.
We scheduled you in for March break because we wanted you to be.
Still, I made top 5.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah.
So, like, it's the idea of people know who I am, and that's okay. And, like, I would never want to not live my life out loud, so that these kids can see, like, that is a possible thing. There will always be people who never admit that to themselves, you know, because they just feel like so many people have so many expectations for them. Like, it wasn't easy with my family. Like, that was not a good time, you know? Like, my parents were both, like, racist homophobes. So,
Oh,
like,
really?
Oh, yeah. But that was, like, but they're farmers. Like, I know that seems like,
so
I'm not labeling everyone at the farms as a racist homophobe, but I am, like, they grew up like children from the 40s and the 50s.
And I think
like,
religion also plays a factor because
100%.
that's a no-no in the Bible. Yeah. So, but I still think there's a way to live, even though maybe you're religious and you don't agree with what's going on. It's like you can still be civil and not attack each other.
By the time they passed away, both of my parents, we were at peace with each other and they were more understanding. I remember bringing my ex home for Thanksgiving and we were leaving and my mom hugged him and told him that she loved him. And I was like, I just kept putting my shoes on and I went out to the car and we both got into the car and I said, did she tell you she loved you? And he was like, yes. And I was like, wow. And he looked at me and I was like, wow. I'm like, that was huge. I said, let's go. I said, let's go before she runs out and takes it back.
Yeah.
I said, oh my God, please. But it was crazy because I never thought that I would ever hear her say those words to like someone that I loved. Like that to me was a huge moment. And then I knew, but this is why I say you have to say those things to Uncle Pete. You have to do those things because I know you can change. Like I know you can understand. It doesn't matter if you accept it. You can understand it and understand that your words are powerful and you don't need to use them negatively all the time. Like, you can be racist. You don't have to actively be a racist. Like, you can choose not to be racist in a room.
Yeah.
You can shut that down.
That's what I was saying about just being civil. It's like you can have your own opinions and ideas, but you don't have to spew them.
Yes. Like when people are like, oh, they're so woke, they're teaching these kids all these things. No, we're showing these kids that life is a spectrum of things. Like all of these things exist in the world. It's when people say don't show people those things, that's you grooming or doing all those things. That's you saying, no, I don't want these things to exist, so I'm not going to show you them. But like they do exist. Like gay people are here for like thousands of years. I know.
Oh, I listened to Zack Snyder on a podcast recently. He's talking about 300, and the Spartans used to have sex with each other before battle.
Really?
Oh yeah,
The Greek system was crazy.
like
They had, so Greek men would have these young male lovers that were called catamites.
Oh yeah,
And so they would get married to women and they would have sexual relations with their wives for procreation and sometimes for fun. But mostly the pleasure sex, like the sex for pleasure, was had with these boys that they would have.
yeah.
Oh, weird.
And
The politicians in Athens would just walk around with them.
yeah, but the wives would also have like their own lovers, and it was like they understood monogamy was not so much of a thing.
Well, there was no straight, there was no gay, there was just affection.
It was just like people. You're like, I'm down for that.
I want to bang.
Yeah. There was no
you.
concept or no word for gay. Like I watched a documentary. What did you say?
As look at someone and be like, I want to bang you.
Well, I watched a show on Alexander the Great, and he had a lover that was like a commander in his army.
Yeah,
But he also, had sex with queens and procreated and all this stuff. But really, he had lovers on the side. But there was no gay, there was no straight. There was just affection towards this person or this person. There was no anything.
there wasn't the negativity in the labels either. So
Yeah.
like, if you were like, I'm down for that, then it was like, okay. But like I actually
There's all
think,
consenting.
yes, but I actually think, and this may sound crazy, and this will get the trolls. The trolls will be trolling, but I actually think that's where we're coming into more of as a society, is like with this exposure and with people like living their lives and living their truths and doing all these things and representation, that people are less likely to be like, oh, I'm really only like one thing, to be more like, oh, well, I guess I would give that a try. Or like, I don't care if people are doing that. Like maybe that's not for me, but maybe tomorrow that is for me. And like, I think people are becoming more open-minded about living life as opposed to living life by the rules of everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I read this beautiful quote, and I'm going to butcher it, and I don't remember who it's from, but they were talking about travel and how travel and exposure to different communities and cultures will just pretty much eliminate racism, because it's like, the most racist people I know never leave where they were born and raised, and they don't know any other thing.
But do you know why?
Why is that?
Because when you become a minority in a foreign land, you understand what it's like. When you become that one or two people in a room full of people who are not you, you feel so uncomfortable. You feel so out of place. And you have to and I know this sounds crazy, you have to try to fit in. Whereas those people right now don't have to try to fit in because they are the norm. And it's like being gay in a room. When you are not the norm, you have to try so hard to like get everyone to see you, love you, respect you, accept you, all of these things. And it's like those people don't travel because if they were to move somewhere else, it's actually oftentimes why if you see it frequently, country people really don't like city people. And and you would have experienced this because when city people move down to the country, there is this like, oh, they moved here from insert city, right? And you're like, they don't know how it is down here. And it's the idea of like the us versus them. But like when you become the them and you having to understand that you are not always the biggest fish in the pond is crazy. And it makes them so uncomfortable that they do not put themselves in those situations. And when they are forced into those situations, like if someone who was like a majority walked into a room and they all of a sudden felt they were a minority, they would leave as fast as possible. They'd be like, and they would be mad. they'd be like, I can't believe you made me do this. And you're like, tricked you.
People live that every day,
Yeah. Oh, all the time.
like yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's our reality. Do you know what I mean? So it's crazy. Well, it's like you can see it. I remember this is a terrible story. It happened at the TD in Simcoe, across from the Canadian Tire. I remember it was very busy, and not on a normal day where I would have thought that there were going to be a lot of like workers there. But now that has changed, right? It used to just be Friday around here, but now it's like most days, and so you kind of adjust, and everything is busier. But I remember being in line, and in ahead of me was an older woman, and then behind her was a Middle Eastern woman. And then it was me, and then an entire lineup of like field workers. Okay. And the old woman turned to the Middle Eastern woman and she said, ugh, this is why I try to avoid town. And the Middle Eastern woman looked at her and she said, she commiserated. She was like, me too. I hate this. And I was like, I was so thrown because I was like, what are you doing? Like, I would have thought there was more of a similarity between the woman of color and the other people of color than between the old white woman and the Middle Eastern woman. I would have I was for sure that she was side with people who were not white.
Yeah.
And she did not. It's like she sold her ethnicity to commiserate. Yeah. To like find
be
acceptance.
On the other side of it.
And I was like, that is also crazy.
We were talking about this with Amy. We were diving into offshore workers, and like, because I have some good friends from Jamaica that come every year. You know them, Dale, Kenny, and Fillmore. But she told us a story about there was a man of color from Toronto that moved here, and somebody approached him in a grocery store and was like, oh, like, when do you go back to see your family? And he's like, I'm from Toronto. So this person had intentions of being friendly and stuff, but just assumed he was offshore worker because he was black.
Yeah. We talked about that. One of a teacher I know, I grew up with her. She said she really realized how off-putting it is sometimes, and the subtle messages that we don't even teach the children around here. Like, they were driving somewhere, and she saw, I guess her kids saw a black family filling up their car with gas. And the daughter said, Mommy, when are they going back to work in the fields? And like, it's such a, but like, you know what I mean? You have that reaction. And it's such an innocent comment from that child, but it's such a telling comment.
There's no malice.
No. But it's a telling comment about our area and our culture here is sometimes like, that's all we see. Like, we don't see people of different ethnicities as anything more than just someone who works here. It's not like someone who lives here, but now there are a lot of workers who are moving here and staying here
Permanently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, more so than ever before. And people helping them with that process because they're getting a better life from that. And it's like, would you not want that for people? Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, do you not just want a better life for people? So like, if they're from Jamaica or they're from wherever, okay, great.
Yeah.
Now we have more diversity here, and that is always great too.
And I think it's harder for the older generation too, because they are used to all the immigration here was Dutch and German and English and Irish, and it's all white people, right?
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a shift for them, I think.
Yeah. But it's interesting, like, it is a shift for them, but not if they'd left this area ever.
And that's what I was talking to you about
if they just
travel.
went to city centers and saw that here we are. Like, Brantford is booming now with brown people, right? Like, the west end of Brant is like very booming. And so it's becoming more like Brampton, right? With like a high population of Middle Eastern people. And it is this idea of there is this diversification, but it also sometimes leads to an increased amount of ignorance, right? Yeah, for a while, and then that goes away. Usually hateful, loud people, their voice gets sore after a while,
I get a little tired.
and they need to give it a break.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Love is the answer.
Love is the answer.
Or a crisp drink. I don't know. Yeah.
How are we for time? I'm just curious.
It is 4:23.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gonna wrap it up soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got things to do.
I got things to do eventually.
He's got Crocs to wear.
Nothing.
Crocs to wear.
Nothing
and
immediate.
life to conquer.
Yeah.
Life to conquer.
Yeah.
Clean up some cat puke. You know. Just
Yeah,
fun
his
stuff.
His cat puked on his camera bag. Unfortunate.
Why?
It seems seems like it's a targeted.
Well,
Like
we
she-
locked her out of the room last night.
Oh,
because
see, yeah,
she
it was on
fucking
purpose.
Is annoying. She was a street cat. We
I
brought
have-
her in, and she treats us like this.
Oh, that was the mom.
Yeah.
I have turtles for a reason.
You
You
have
have
turtles?
I have turtles.
That's so
That's
cool.
My
hilarious.
turtles are older than both of you.
Really?
My turtles are 35.
What?
Oh.
Correct.
And you've had them the whole time?
Yeah, I got them for my 8th birthday.
Oh.
Um,
It's kind of like a bonsai tree, but
You've kept that.
that's
Wow.
insane.
yeah.
I wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
commit to something that, or to keep something alive that long.
Wow.
Wow, you just said something about yourself. Wow, I hope someone specific is
We're
not.
gonna have to take that out of the podcast. I'm gonna get in
I
trouble
think
for
that needs
one.
to be kept in the
No,
podcast.
redact.
Wow. That was probably the greatest thing I've ever heard you say. So telling. He's blushing right now.
Kids are scary.
I'm in
Kids
trouble.
are scary.
I'm
yeah.
in trouble.
Yeah.
It's a,
No, 35 years. They were my 8th birthday present. And
wow.
got them from Ruffins and Simcoe. And I've had them ever since.
Are they big turtles?
Yeah, so they started off, they would have been about the size of a silver dollar pancake.
Okay.
Use that as a reference point if you can.
Thank you.
This is probably the easiest thing. And now they are about the size of
It's like a regular
like
size
a
pancake.
regular size pancake, like a Harmony Bakery pancake or whatever.
Okay.
That'd be
Wherever you're
bigger.
going to for breakfast.
That tank's got to be big.
The tanks, listen, they are in their tank. It's a little tight for them, but they still have room to move around and do the things. I will not get them a bigger tank because if you do, they grow to fit the size of their environment. So like the next move is the upstairs bathtub that never gets used, and that will be their home if it needs to be.
Interesting.
They will have their own tub.
What are their names?
I was just going to ask that.
Listen, originally there was Tommy and Susie, but one time during that first year, I came home and Susie had felt like maybe she wasn't living the best life, and she had jumped from her perch and smashed her head on a rock.
Oh no.
And at the tender age of 8, I had learned about pet death.
Oh.
And I cried, and we buried her.
She's suicide.
She jumped. And yeah, she jumped.
She was a jumper.
Yeah, and instantly went and got another one. Called that one Ben. Now, let's see, 2 dudes.
Tommy and
dudes.
Ben.
I knew it.
Are they gay turtles?
It's like, they're gay turtles. They're gay for each other. However, I actually think, not that I'm a turtle like biologist here, but I actually think they are both chicks.
You don't know what the sex
I don't.
is?
No, I don't know what the sex is. So like, I think
I
they're.
don't know how you would.
Yeah,
I
it
don't-
just,
I'm
there's
not-
something.
I'm
I
not a
guess
turtle biologist
there's
either.
no like just penis hanging out there.
Well,
so, like,
it's awfully not boy girl because otherwise you'd have more
correct.
turtles.
I would have
so-
had babies
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
So
They got to be the same sex.
yeah. So they're either 2 dudes,
Sort of,
Two-
no matter what, they're-
2
they're-
ladies,
They're gay no matter what.
but
they are.
whatever they can be, whatever they want. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna assign gender to them. They just they have boy names and that's,
Cool. That works.
Yeah. Tommy and Ben,
Very cool.
my amazing Ninja Turtles.
Do they know their names? I don't
I
know
talk
the
to them.
intelligence
I
level
talk
of
to them
turtles.
sometimes.
Yeah.
They're Ben's a dick. Ben is really like an asshole when I try to clean their tank because I'll lift him up and he'll like start slapping his leg around and then he'll start pissing everywhere.
Yeah,
So
fuck
I
that
usually
turtle.
I hold him over the tank until he's done, and then I have a towel and I move him over to the bathtub where I keep them for when I'm cleaning them. And then Tommy, I just pick him up. He's like, yo. And then we just walk over.
OG.
He's chill. He's also heavy.
Yeah.
Like Ben, light. Tommy, wow. Like Tommy's a tank. Tommy is thick.
Thick boy Tommy the
Yeah,
turtle.
yeah. Tommy is chonky.
He's just lifting stones.
Yeah,
and
he's just like, he's just slapping.
gonna get jacked.
Yeah,
Laughing Ben around.
slapping Ben around and being like, "Get over there, give me all the food." So yeah, but yeah, no, and that's I kept them through university. My mom looked after them. She hated it. She was so mad, and she was like, "Take these turtles away from me." And I was like, "Okay," but yeah. So it's like that's the longest commitment I've ever had in my life. True.
One.
So like
That's a long one.
It's impressive.
those are my
Very
children.
impressive.
Yeah, well,
So impressive.
yeah, turtles.
Nice.
They'll probably outlive me.
Probably.
I'm now going to actually bequeath them. This is my actual record. I will be giving my turtles to Drew,
Nope. We're gonna take this out of the podcast as well. I
So
don't
that
want turtles.
he-
I don't want
so
the
that
cats
he
I have.
can know what it's like to have a long-term commitment. So cheers.
Summer would love that. She'd
Cheers.
be like,
I'm
"That's
drinking to
fire."
that right now. It seals the deal.
I think both of us have to.
You can't split
I'm
them
out
up.
beverage.
Yeah. How many day? What day are you on, Drew?
I don't even
You got to
know,
be in the 50, late 50? Okay.
Do you only have 20 days left of your program?
something like that.
75 total, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember the number. I just see them at the end of every day. And then I react to them.
Yeah. I love when people react to them. I'm like, yeah, support.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it
great.
feels good.
Yeah.
Filming's top notch too.
Thank you. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I've been mainly focusing on, like the angles. And
Yeah, it's great.
composition.
Some of the angles are pretty good.
Yeah, thank you.
Some of your videos are funny, though.
Some of them I just definitely I'm like the tripod.
Put
on
it
the
here,
floor.
get it
Yeah,
done.
Just get it done. I'm fucking want to go to bed.
Yeah. Well, each day's different, right? So
Yeah.
That's sometimes the thing, too, is like, because you're doing the journey with this kind of full circles is a bit too, do you feel obligated to post?
Yes.
Because do you feel like it's less valid if you skip a day of posting?
Yes, and but I have skipped
Yeah.
a few days of posting.
Because
now.
it keeps you accountable, right?
Yeah, I like that aspect of it, but I definitely feel guilty, and then I just kind of talk myself out. I'm like, it doesn't fucking matter if I post today. Like, I want to rest. My body hurts.
So
I need to lay down.
here's the $1 million question.
$1 million.
I'm flipping the script on you. What is the first thing you're going to drink when you can have a drink again?
I've actually thought about trying to sell that to a brewer or something in the area and be like, who wants the highest bid for my newfound alcohol virginity?
No, you can't grow it back.
No, damn it.
No.
I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
Like, what's your favorite thing to drink?
I like
locally?
beer and tequila.
Yeah, I know you like beer.
Yeah.
I've seen you out drinking a beer or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen.
That's
you.
usually when we pass each
Yeah,
other's.
it's like you're in a corner doing something, and here I am over at another corner
Yeah.
drinking.
mine would be an old fashioned for sure.
Old fashioned?
He goes for a cocktail. He's classy though.
I actually don't even know what that. And you're good at making them. though.
Whiskey.
That's the
Classy.
thing.
Yeah.
You can
It's
make
sort of
cocktails.
what I made Jason, but without mint and blueberries.
I really liked mine. That was delicious.
Did you like it?
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
actually
Well, it's
really
kind
good.
of like a mocktail on a Moscow Mule. So
What's your hometown? Your go-to?
Hometown's my go-to.
Because it's
Yeah.
close.
Yeah, they're friends
Well,
of mine.
yeah, a little bias, I think,
Yeah.
but also great beer. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe it's them.
It could be them. Hazy IPA.
Oh, you like the IPAs?
I like the IPAs.
I do not.
I'm indifferent. It's whatever.
It's like chewing a nugget of weed.
Oh yeah, you know what? You're not far off from that because
Yeah,
I was at a event at the winery and Aiden, I believe is his name, the brewer master at Flux, was talking about how
Oh, no.
a hop and marijuana are very similar to each other.
Oh, okay.
Like they're very similar plants.
Did he have some? Did you
Well,
get it?
if you
'Cause
ever have you ever held a hop in your hand?
I've chewed on.
It looks like a bud of weed.
Yeah.
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 I think I've chewed barley.
Aiden Grummett, my
That's-
loafer.
That's the guy.
He's my loafer.
Yeah.
I definitely want to have him on.
Yeah. He's because we used to bake each other bread, and he's not my lover. He's my loafer.
Oh,
See, yeah. He's like because he was at concession, and so I would walk down the street to see him like a lot. Like we're good.
Oh,
we're
that's
good
where I
friends.
met him. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was
we're
at
good
concession.
friends. We're good friends. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's
very,
a-
he's very smart.
Very
And
passionate.
like lovely human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, great beard.
Great beer. Yeah.
Great beard.
It's a little ginger, isn't it? Ginger.
It's a lot of ginger.
Yeah, it's a lot.
He
Ginger.
also has like this sweet old El Paso hat that he used to wear. Got great fashion.
Speaking of local beer, I've been meaning to ask you ever since you brought it out. There is a pair of underwear on your beer can.
Yeah. I finished this podcast off with a Wedgie Delight from Charlottesville Brewing Co.
Wedgie Delight.
It's called Wedgie Delight. It's a brown ale.
Because sometimes when you get a wedgie,
Interesting
it
name.
it leads to a brown ale.
When we did my beer tour for my birthday, my parents bought me a beer from every brewery and then gifted it to me after. So
I was really sad.
that's what this is from.
He was in my town.
I'm sorry, I didn't even know about it.
I was
I
busy.
surprised.
I was busy.
Oh.
It was fine.
Yeah.
It was like, you're good. I was out of town, but I saw the post and I was like,
Yeah, we'll go soon.
yeah, I'll drink with anybody. You want to have a drink? Let me know.
We'll get a drink.
That's why I said,
after.
hey, do you want a cocktail or a mocktail? He's like, Drew, you will never see a mocktail in my hand.
No. I had one.
Cheers to that.
I had one a couple weeks ago because I was driving. I was DD.
Yeah, in those times, it's important.
Yeah.
To,
Like, know your limit, play within it.
yeah.
I always offer because, we've been doing these during the days and weekdays sometimes. So, sometimes people are taking their lunch break to come
March
in here.
break.
Mark,
break,
that's
send
why
it.
we
Could've
had
been-
you on now.
Could have been 10 o'clock. What?
Yeah.
In Doug Ford's,
Morning Caesars.
Ontario.
No one will ever
Caesar
know.
mornings.
Alrighty.
Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your personal struggles and your stories and all the drama.
I have to say, this was like the most random, but like the most enjoyable because we kind of just went with it. And I think sometimes that's what people need, is to just have a conversation.
That's my goal with every person who comes on here.
Just have a
just
conversation.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know your background a bit, but if we want to talk about, whatever, we'll just talk about it.
We can.
Yeah. And we'll definitely have you back on.
What a great time.
Yeah.
Well, thanks,
Okay.
gentlemen.
Yeah.
Cheers,
Thanks a lot.
everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening. He always likes to hit.
Hey,
You took away the other one.
I did.
just Drew. Just Drew. Just Drew.
That fucking commitment.